What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Analytically Correct. I'm here with Rob and as always. We're going to get into a couple of things that we missed from last week. We were off last week. Just a couple of things, and then mostly we're going to talk about what's going on in the NBA right now. Bubble ball, as it's called. But first, I wanted to start with the Jamal Adams trade. That was just kind of a couple of things from last week that I wanted to get to that we didn't. So the Jamal Adams trade was, I think it was from Seattle, gave up 2 first-round picks and then another safety that they had, and then a third-round pick. And then they get Jamal Adams and like a couple of other picks. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Like a 4th-round pick was sent to them as well.
But pretty much it was like 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams, and then there was a couple of other little things on the side. So I just wanted to kind of get your reaction to that trade. What did you think about? Did they give up too much? Would it be worth it? Do you think that's something that they need if they're like one piece away on defense from winning a championship? What were your basic thoughts on that?
I mean, it solves their answer to George Kittle right away. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really does solve that. And also on top of it, I mean, I thought it was a very good move from them right away because you kind of look at it's like, okay, you have Griffin, who looks like he's going to be a very stout corner. You know, you have Bobby Wagner. And now you're starting to look at, okay, we have Quandre Diggs from last year's trade, and now you're bringing on, Jamal Adams. They're going back to the nucleus they had before, and I like that they're doing that on defense. I wanted to say they gave up because I would be very upset if Dallas gave that much up, like a team that was like I like that would give up that much. But Seattle doesn't draft well in the first round when you look at recent history, especially in the past. Like they really don't draft as well as most people would think. I mean, they had their years where they had good draft runs, but like lately their first round picks actually have been pretty much a good amount of misses. So when you look at adding Jamal Adams to that team, you could be a team that makes the playoffs consistently. And so let's say for the next 2 years, you lose the 25th, 26th pick. Well, you have an all-pro safety. So it is worth it in a sense to me, at least. I mean, it's kind of like, where are you going to be that in the next 2 years, do you believe, if you add this guy? And it's like, I don't believe they're going to miss the playoffs these next 2 seasons. I think they still will be in the playoffs. And if they win a playoff game, if not 2, then, they're looking at having, anywhere between the 24th to, 28th pick for the next 2 years. And if you look at giving up 2 of those, it's worth Jamal Adams, in my opinion, for sure. For them, because it adds their defensive nucleus back.
It sounds like a lot to give up when you think about 2 first-round picks and a third, but like you said, if they're going to be good, it's going to be like a 25th round or 25th overall pick or worse. And then he's still on his rookie contract for 2 more years. So it's not like you're getting him, you have to extend him immediately. So if you consider that you're trading away 2 first-round picks, one of those picks is one you would have spent on a guy like that in the draft anyways, but you're adding the extra pick, you're getting a sure thing. I think he's like 23. One of the best safeties in the league already. And then you're not losing as much as it sounds like when you talk about like what they gave up. And then I didn't even consider what you said about the George Kittle thing. Like if you're gonna have to play San Francisco at some point and then you have somebody that can stop George Kittle, I was looking at a couple of different things, and I think the leader was like 4.5 sacks or something like that for Seattle last year. And then you look at Clowney not coming back. Jamal Adams would have led them in sacks last year.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the big thing too now. It's like, if you really look at them, like the last really successful first-round pick they had was Earl Thomas. I mean, you look at the next, I just pulled it up right here. I mean, James Carpenter, Bruce Irvin, 2013, 2015, they didn't have a first-round pick. Then they had Jermaine Efeldy from A&M, a guard who didn't do anything. I mean, 2017, they had no pick. Rashard Penny, LJ Collier, and then Jordan Brooks this year. It's like, they're just not they don't draft well in the first round. So for you to kind of say like, hey, let's, like you said, he's 23. So that's a very young player. It's going to come down to the contract though at the end of the day with him.
It's going to be a big contract, but they're kind of doing this thing that a bunch of teams in the league have done. You saw it when what's his name went from Jacksonville to LA.
Ramsey.
Yeah, when Ramsey went there. So a lot of these teams it makes more sense to me for Seattle than it did for LA though, because if you think Russell Wilson, which he doesn't seem like he's slowing down at all, but if you're going to try to go all in on his title window for the next couple of years, when they were at their best, it was when they had those safeties. Like everybody talks about Richard Sherman and some of the other guys on that defense, but Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor were kind of like the anchors of that defense.
Oh yeah.
So if
to have an enforcer on both sides too.
If you can get back to that, yeah, like Jamal Adams can play, he's not like a specialist. He can play the run, he can play the pass, he can rush the quarterback. So I think it would end up being worth it. And then if you're the Jets on the other side, you don't really have a choice. Like for me, it worked out for both teams because once you come out and say that your coach is not the leader that this team needs, like either the coach has to go or the player has to go. And he made it pretty clear that he didn't want to re-sign there. So.
And it's also, man, it's I have such an issue with Adam Gase. I mean, Adam Gase always beeps with his best players. If you look at, when there was times where he was talking, like before the season started, there was questions about him and Le'Veon Bell. When he was in Miami, him and Jarvis Landry had a hatred. Hell, when he was coaching in Denver as an OC, him and John Elway didn't get along. He has such an issue with if you're known as a very good player or a very big name, he has such an ego issue. I don't understand the hire with Adam Gase, but then we could go on for probably about 5 weeks worth of I don't understand with the whole New York Jets alone.
Yeah, it wasn't even just the Adam Gase thing. It seemed like for him too, because it was going back pretty much the whole time he had been there that he had issues with management and Adam Gase was. To me, I don't even know if he necessarily believed in what he said when he said that about Adam Gase. It could have just been okay, they're not going to do anything unless I come out and say this. And he just kind of forced his way out. Because once he says that, you can't not get rid of him. Yeah. So in that sense, the Jets to be able to get that much back for him when it was, I'm not a general manager of an NFL team, obviously. But if I knew that they had to trade him, then for them to be able to get back what they did, and all the teams knew that they were trying to trade him, that's pretty good for them to get two of the first. And then whatever the safety they got back might take his place or some. I think it's Bradley McDougall. I don't really know.
McDougall. Mm-hmm. Which and then you have him paired up with Marcus May, so it's they have a good solid backfield. But my thing about when you kind of looking at it now, it's the Seahawks never want to lose Earl Thomas, hence why they never traded him. But once the relationship was salvaged, because I always felt like this was the move to be okay, we lost Earl. What's the next thing we can get? Jamal Adams. It's this is something they really like and they believe in. I think it should. I'm excited to see him and how that defense looks in Seattle. I think if Clowney takes a smaller deal and takes a 1-year smaller deal because he wants to play for a contender, this is his contender he can come back and play for. In all honesty, I mean,
if they're able to get Clowney to come back now, then they'll have him. They'll have Bobby Wagner still in the second level, and then in the secondary they'll have Jamal Adams. They'll have a top 5 or top 10 guy at each position in each part of the defense. So it's kind of rebuilding what they had before. And then Griffin has been really kind of underrated too, I think, as a corner, for what you're saying. But yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit just because we didn't get a chance last week, and I think it worked out well for both teams. So I'm excited for that. As far as the NFL season, I'm just hopeful that it's going to go on in general. It seems, another couple of players have opted out, but
but some of these players that have opted out have also opted out because they're trying not to get cut too. Because these are guys that are opting out that they have that option to make $375 or get cut. It's just
is that if you opt out, they can't cut you?
Well, you at least get your before the deadline, you get $375,000 is where it works out in, so they can still get a check in there as well. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so some of these unheard of guys that are opting out, it makes sense because if they get cut by the time camp is over, then it's a whole nother story. But then you also have guys like C.J. Mosley, and if I was playing for the Jets and they just trade Jamal Adams, and I'm looking around yeah, I'll opt out too at this point then because and why,
If you're on the Jets, you're pretty much already opting out of the season anyway.
and same thing with everyone's talking about New England and how there's a lot of people believe that they can win the division. I think it's a little far off still, but I can see why some of these guys in New England are sitting out too because you're almost looking at okay, we don't have Tom, we have this, we have that, but it's just you kind of look at it's a time to. If there's a time to opt out and not play, some of these guys are going to do that. Now, hence why you're not seeing a lot of major contract players do this. You're not the guys who are making money. You're not going to see them say no yet to it. You know what I mean? If we start seeing guys like Mahomes and Odell spoke about it, but also it came out that Odell also is happy the way Cleveland's handling things with everything going on with COVID. It's it's easy to say things in that, but by the time you realize, okay, I can still make $18 million this year, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Especially when you see a lot of people going back to work right now for whatever they're making. And at the end of the day, a lot of these people, if you have a family member or something that you don't want to get them sick, a lot of these guys are young and healthy, like for the most part, it's not very likely that even if they get it, it's going to wind up affecting them in the long term. So if you're talking about taking kind of a risk for millions of dollars, I can see why some people opt out if they have like family issues, but I haven't heard anybody that's just opted out basically because they are actually worried about themselves getting it. It doesn't seem like.
I know Marquise Goodwin did with Philly because he just had a child get born, so that was a big thing on there. And it's there's the guy the first guy from Kansas City is he has he's been through with medical school, and he also said he opted out too. But when you look at these guys that are complaining, I really want to just I'm kind of tired of hearing it just because the fact's like, okay, yeah, you can complain, but don't forget, a lot of people see you on Snapchat and all over Instagram and all over these other social media platforms, and you're not taking it serious. You know what I mean? You're not. Yeah. You're out running around. You're out doing this and that. So don't pretend to take it serious. Don't fall into this whole thing that a lot of people in this country are falling into, where, well, I don't want to work, so I'll just sit back and hope money comes my way. You know what I mean? It's like, eventually got to move on. It is what it is. And I know some people are gonna be upset saying, "Oh, you don't know the parameters. What could be going on?" It's like, listen, I have, I follow a lot of these guys on, because I like to see what their training is in general. But when I'm seeing them on jet skis, I'm seeing them in hotels and Airbnbs with a bunch of people. Don't tell me they're taking it serious, quite frankly.
Did we get a chance to talk about Lou Williams? Was that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, we talked about that moron, man.
Okay. What's wrong? I couldn't remember if that was last week or if it was 2 weeks ago, but yeah.
I would have had a better reaction if he would have not said, "Oh, I went there because the chicken wings are good." No, stop it, dude.
I listened to, he had some comments come out that actually made me kind of understand where he was coming from, which was, I think it was today. And he was just like, I went to a funeral and I was mourning this person's death and this and that. And then I just kind of did something that was normal for me without really thinking about it. Like, I went there at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon and I just went to get food. Like, it's named after him. It sounds pretty good. Lou Williams, lemon pepper. I would try it.
Yeah, it's named after him because he's out there tipping enough. That's why, man.
They need to. Magic City needs to like sponsor him in some other kind of way or something for all the publicity they just got. Like, I want to see what kind of wing sales they were doing after this. Like, it had to be like.
Well, if I'm ever in Magic City, I'm gonna try them because I love lemon pepper as it is. But with Lou Williams being attached to it, then yeah, I'll try it for sure.
Lemon pepper Lou Williams wings, good enough to quarantine for.
Is it a dry rub or is it wet? Because if it's him, I mean that's the next question there too.
Lemon pepper wet? Oh man, that's a different level.
Yeah. I don't, and that's and I say, obviously calling him that, but it's like, it's that's the thing too. It's like, it's. I can see why the NBA would be so frustrated with them in a sense of they just worked so hard to make sure there were no positive cases and then this happens. But it's like, again, it's like he said, I did something that was normal to me. And it's like normality at some point has to come in. And I know they're going to wait till probably November 6th for the normality to come back in realistically. But in general, it's like, some type of normality has to come through. And I think that expecting players to just not go out and be, do their normal routine in life, it's going to be really hard to expect. And I think that, you're seeing that more and more, especially with, the NFL's coming up, and that's going to be a whole nother thing because it doesn't sound like there's much of a bubble system there. But I saw that the Broncos have a whole system of you have to walk through where they're spraying disinfectant on everything. And to be honest, I'm also not buying that players are worried about their health because if there's anywhere you want to be doing this, you want to be a professional athlete because especially when you have top-rated doctors. If you look at the Cowboys, team doctor, he's one of the most known surgeons in the country. Like these guys don't have BS doctors. They don't have they have a full facility full of people to make sure nobody gets sick or hurt too. Like
you're getting tested every single day. Everybody around you is being tested every single day. So if you do get it, you're gonna know right away.
Yeah, and it's. If you really want it, like the rich is always gonna be taken care of. So that's where I'll put my standpoint on that one.
Yeah, that's when it's the same thing about like. It's the same people complaining about them getting all these tests and everything that are complaining about like, oh, they're overpaid or why do they make this much money or whatever. It's like, I don't know, because they're 6'10" and they can handle and dribble and shoot. Like, I'm sorry that you work in a restaurant or whatever. Like, there's millions of people.
A company that brings in billions of dollars. It's like
there's millions of people that can do your job, and there's like 100 that could do theirs. You'd not see like. And they're paying for the test. They're not taking tests away from anybody who's already getting it. And I've heard a couple of people make that argument about like, oh, why is it this important? Blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm not really wanting to listen to that. The other thing that happened last week that I wanted to talk about was Tom Thibodeau to the Knicks.
I'm glad it's not Brooklyn. I'm not
I thought it was a good hire.
Here's my thing. It's a good hire 10, 15 years ago. I don't see it as a good hire now. Like, it's just he doesn't do well with young guys as well because he grinds the hell out of them. Jimmy Butler loves him. Jimmy Butler, I love Jimmy Butler. Not every guy is built like Jimmy Butler these days. So,
Right.
like, I mean, that's a thing too. So they're gonna have to figure out real quick. It's either and who knows? Thibodeau definitely could have changed his way he goes, and he could have toned things down. But is R.J. Barrett and these other young guys going to be able to, are they going to be able to withstand the typical Thibodeau grind? Because I love Thibodeau as a coach, but in this era of basketball, I wouldn't want him with my group just because the fact of he's such a hard grinding guy that this era of basketball just doesn't create. They're not built like that anymore. Jimmy Butler's rare because of the way he is grind-wise, but he was also a JUCO player. Jimmy Butler wasn't like he's not Anthony Davis and LeBron James where he was kind of coddled to on AAU for his whole life and told how great he was going to be. I mean, Jimmy Butler struggled for a bit to get to where he was getting to, and he had to grind that way. So if you can get a team of grinders, then I love it for New York. But that all comes down to New York and the way they draft too, though.
But when you said that he's not really good at developing young players, I mean, Derrick Rose won an MVP when Thibodeau was the coach. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns did really well when he was.
Karl Anthony Towns won a Thibodeau gone. Let's not forget that. And also, Derrick Rose's knee blew out.
That could be because he didn't want to work hard. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is not known as the grittiest, toughest player. Let's put it that way. I mean,
but that's why I said that. I mean, how many guys in the NBA are known as gritty and tough these days? Like that's why people
look at the good ones. I mean,
oh no, because even Kyrie Irving's not a gritty guy.
Well, I didn't bring up his name. You brought up his name.
He's not. I mean, we're talking about good ones. Who's if we want to go by gritty and who's good? Devin Booker. He's not a gritty guy.
Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul?
Yeah, Chris Paul is a tough player in my opinion.
He's gritty because he's old. This man, he's gritty because he's old and has to be that way. He can't rely on his skill anymore. He's also hated through the league.
He's been pretty good this year. I don't know, but my point was more so that, and you can't really blame Derrick Rose blowing out his knee on Tom Thibodeau alone. I don't think. I mean, the way that he played was so physical, and the way he went to the rim, you're going to get injured eventually. That's why everybody's worried about Zion and the injuries that he's had in the past. And then look, it's the same kind of thing as the way that Dwayne Wade played in that style, and then injuries are just eventually going to catch up to you.
And the thing is, it's not that I don't think he develops guys. It's because he's literally just one of these guys that it's like he just pushes guys too hard for this era. I don't think he pushes guys too hard, but this is an era now of coddled AAU players. I mean, you can look as far back as you want me. This is just a different era of basketball. Like I said, you're not going to see guys that are going to want to grind all day and all night. Kobe Bryant loved Tom Thibodeau. Kobe Bryant was known as a complete. You got to have the work ethic like these guys. That's why I mentioned Jimmy Butler. Guys like him who have that work ethic. There's not a lot of guys that are out grinding Jimmy Butler in this league. Hell, if you look at a lot of the top players, there's not. To be honest with you, I don't even think Kevin Durant's that gritty of a player compared to Jimmy Butler. And Kevin Durant's a lot better player than Jimmy Butler is.
No, I see what you're saying, but I mean,
it's a mental toughness thing when it comes to Thibodeau, and can they handle that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, who would you rather have had them hire then in that case?
In that case, I mean, I think I'm still shocked Mark Jackson's not hired, but I think Mark Jackson's looking for the right job too. I think he's playing it smart by not just jumping into an area where I think Mark wants to be able to coach with a team that he doesn't have to just go for 3 years, build the hell out of him, and then get kicked out again.
I think there are a lot of people that are waiting for Brett Brown to get fired because that's a job that anybody should want. And I think we'll see because he's gotten some credit for putting Ben Simmons, I think, at the 4 and then moving Shake Milton to point guard. And they've won some games and lost some games so far, but I think it's a good move, especially if nobody's going to respect Ben Simmons' shooting ability. Mm-hmm. Then if you're gonna move him and pick and roll with him and let him do what he does best, which is great. And speaking of, I don't know why, but I was watching a Magic game. That just reminded me when I talk about Ben Simmons shooting. Markelle Fultz made 2 threes in one of the games.
Dude, I still, Markelle Fultz, that is a, him in Orlando, I think probably works better because it's almost like he kind of got forgotten. And so it helps him to be able to not have so much pressure. Because, you got him from being the number 1 pick to playing in the city of Philadelphia, where I don't think there's a tougher city to play in this whole country, to be honest. Especially if you're a number 1 guy. I mean, I think Markelle Fultz being in Orlando really, really is going to help his development, not just from the sake that he won't have nearly the pressure he was facing once before.
Yeah, if he winds up being anything, that'll be a plus for them, especially after they lost Jonathan Isaac. I was looking up because I wasn't sure if he was coaching anywhere. Kevin Ollie, and he was a big deal a couple of years ago, and then he went to coach somewhere in the NBA, right? Or he went. He got hired somewhere.
I know Ollie was in college for a bit, but it was
He was on UConn.
Yeah.
But I thought he went to the NBA. I don't know, but he was a guy that was talked about for a while.
Better than Jason Kidd. Okay, like I don't know what it is with people on Jason Kidd. Like I get he was a great player, but like,
what did anybody see in Milwaukee that made them like think that was a good coaching hire? I don't.
It's because Giannis liked Jason Kidd. It's one of those things like if a top player likes you, then
so like maybe the off chance that he'll go and play for him again.
Yeah, I mean I could see, and one person who I see going to New York possibly is Victor Oladipo. That would not shock me if he ends up going to New York.
Yeah, and I like him and he's good, but he's not on that level to where if you get him, you're automatically like a contender for a championship or anything. He needs to be like a second or third guy. Realistically, third, I think.
I mean, hell, if Giannis went to New York right now, they still wouldn't be a contender. I mean, New York needs a good amount of stuff there to help them out still.
To the Knicks, I don't know. They would have a lot of cap room, I think.
Well, I mean, they'd also have like I don't know, like an eighth power forward at that point then too.
They just go the opposite of the Rockets.
all tall ball, man. All tall ball. Nobody under 6'10". Nobody under 6'10".
I don't know. Everybody's been talking about Giannis probably like going to Miami or something like that. But he seems like the kind of guy that would stay in Milwaukee. I don't know.
It's more appealing to stay in the NBA, and then you can force your way out after a year if you wanted to.
I definitely don't see him doing that though. But I know what you're saying as far as like that they can offer a lot more money, but I don't see him signing and then saying like, "Hey, I want out of here." Unless, I mean, I don't know. If they do you think it's not after this year, it's after next year, right? That he can leave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To be honest,
so you think
I think that Giannis, I mean,
what did you say?
I think the most appealing thing with Giannis, and they're talking about where he goes. I mean, Golden State, I think, has a legit opportunity to go after and make the move, but also I don't think Milwaukee thinks they're not going to get him back. I don't think Milwaukee's going to trade him whatsoever. I think Milwaukee really feels like they're going to be able to sign him and keep him on, because it's kind of hard for Milwaukee to feel like they wouldn't, just because how well they're still playing with him. It's one of those things. I know Toronto really likes him.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like the pros and cons of him like leaving or staying. And at first I was like, okay, when Anthony Davis, before he went to the Lakers, they're like, oh, if he goes there, he'll be like a whole different level of star. And I was like, well, people already know about Anthony Davis, even people who don't really watch the NBA. But it's kind of true. Like if you go play in LA or New York or something like that, I almost want someone to just go play in New York at this point. Like I was kind of hoping, and I'm talking about the Knicks. I was kind of hoping that Durant or somebody would just try to go win the Knicks a championship or something. I know Stretch agrees, but at this point, like I feel bad for Detroit because we're not a major market and we're never going to sign a free agent. But if you're the Knicks, like how can you not get anybody? I guess it just keeps going back to the same thing with Jim Dolan.
Yeah, I mean that's strictly the reason why. It's not because if you look at everything, it all pans out to if I'm the Knicks, I would be absolutely beyond annoyed if if the little brother franchise is signing 2 premier free agents and we can't, and our big free agent signs Julius Randle, you know what I mean? Like that's like the Mets signing A-Rod and the Yankees walking out with nothing. Like it's like that makes no sense,
Yeah. It really didn't help that one commercial break when they thought they were going to be able to get Zion and then it came back and then they had like the 3rd or 4th pick or whatever it was. Like for one commercial,
basketball gods cursing right there.
For one commercial break, everybody, and that's like the end all be all for how it's not really rigged. Like you think they want the best players going to like Milwaukee or whatever to Phoenix or anything like that. Like
we live in a time where if you have dirt on someone who's a high power, you can knock them off right away. So I don't know how James Dolan has no dirt on him.
It's insane.
He has to have said something rude or crude or sexually, like something had to be done badly at one point by him where somebody can run with it and just create a coalition against him, to be honest.
It's the one time that Knicks fans like wish somebody was racist. Like he has nothing. Come on.
Like, it's like, I don't know. And it's shocking to me because it's like, wow, nothing has ever came out about him, like in a way such as that, other than he's an asshole and Charles Oakley doesn't like him.
Especially if you're rich too. Like you got to be like doing
Yeah.
all kinds of things. So just last thought or two on basketball. From the teams that you watched so far, I don't know how much you've been watching of it. I've been pretty much watching games all day, so they start at like 1 o'clock now. Have you changed anything about any of the teams that you think, who you like or anything?
I still think the championship's going to be in it's going to be in with one of the LA teams. I think it was, when you really look at it, it's either going to be the Lakers or Clippers to me. But I again, I like the dark horse. For my dark horse group is Denver. I thought you
were going to say Portland. Woo, go Magic!
God, man. But no, Denver's fun. Like I said, especially Michael Porter coming in a little bit. Jokic, they play well together. This is a weird year, so we could definitely have a team that's kind of unexpected. If there's going to be any year it could happen, I really feel like this is a strong year that could happen. It's hard for me to imagine an Eastern Conference team winning a championship with those three teams in the Western Conference. You know what I mean? But it could happen to where that way. But like I said, between the Lakers, Clippers, those two alone, I don't see any team in the East taking them out. And then if Denver faces a team in the East, they're skilled all around, and Denver's got a good group over there.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool to see the Bucks win, to see Giannis like in the finals. I was hoping to see that last year too, and then obviously they lost to Toronto. But I think the only team, I don't know, the Raptors have looked really good, but it's just when your best guy is Siakam, then it's kind of hard to put too much stock into.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm on with him. It's like, I don't want to count them out, even though I definitely have been vocally like I'm not big on them being that team, but it's like they play the record wise. I think it's been the same the past 3 years with the same amount of games they've been playing, and it's like the difference maker is obviously they don't have Kawhi Leonard, and that to me is the difference maker to them. Obviously doing that.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty big difference too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I guess I don't think we ever talked about like regular season awards or anything like that. You would have Giannis as MVP, right?
LeBron.
You would have LeBron instead of Giannis?
Yeah, I would, man. To be honest with you, I really would have LeBron on there.
Based on the regular season that just happened?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I really would pick LeBron over Giannis as an MVP. I think it's kind of hard to truly go against LeBron when you look at it. It's when we look at the Lakers roster, I think it's, if you look at how good, that team as a whole up and down, I don't think that like they have some names. So you take, LeBron James is truly like as a whole leading a group there that the names aren't as good. Like they have some names, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend Avery Bradley's a great player. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, what's his face who's losing hair at 23, Caruso. Is a great player. Like Caruso, to me, I can't stand to talk on Caruso, quite frankly, to be honest.
Everybody loves Caruso. Like Lakers fans love Caruso. They wouldn't trade him for Chris Paul.
and then you have what's his face, Kuzma, who's Kuzma's gotten worse and worse. Like he's one of those guys that he's not getting better and better. Seems
like he's just going to be like a bench scorer.
His girlfriend on Instagram is always getting better and better, but that's about like where we go with him, to be honest. Like, and I will say with this, like the thing with Laker fans truly, it's a little off topic here, but Laker fans believe they can trade and get Damian Lillard. They have nothing to trade. Nobody's taking Caruso and Kuzma in 330 overall draft picks. You know what I mean? Like nobody's taking that for anybody.
I don't even know if they have the cap room anyways. Isn't Dame Lillard getting like a supermax?
Yeah, Damian Lillard's getting paid super.
And it's like at this point, like if you're a Lakers fan, fuck you. Like, don't you have enough? You have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Come on.
Yeah,
I would say I was kind of surprised to hear you say that. I would have thought it was pretty clearly that Giannis would have won MVP. You could argue that LeBron's not even the best player on his team. With Anthony Davis being there. And then if you look at the numbers that Giannis put up with his second player being Chris Middleton, the difference between Chris Middleton and Anthony Davis is a pretty big gap. So he won it last year. He put up better numbers this year. They have the best record in the East. I know the Lakers have the best record in the West, but
LeBron being a 25, 8 in, what is he, 10 or 11 in assists? He's
leading the league in assists.
Yeah, it's hard for me to really go against that. And obviously, like I said, I'm picky with my LeBron. You know, there are times where I think LeBron's very good, and there are times where I just think that, quite frankly, he's just full of it. But I really look at this year and you look at LeBron. It's not taking anything away from Giannis. I think Giannis is doing a great job, obviously. But LeBron in a Western Conference really out there fighting. It's day in, day out, day grind. And it's hard for me to go against it. But obviously, I mean, I think it's not a clear cut competition in my mind. I mean, I think it could go either way with these two. But if I was picking, I'm going LeBron on it.
Yeah, I think if I had to, I would go Giannis and then LeBron and then probably Harden third.
Yeah, James Harden. James Harden gets kind of thrown away in these MVP conversations consistently, and that kind of annoys me too. Because I'm like, it's hard to sit here and for me to be like, yeah, James Harden's on. Like James Harden's is a very, very good player. Offensively, I don't think there's a better player than him right now.
And his defense got a lot better than when he used to be like on YouTube, like a matador.
I think he just got sick and tired of hearing it, so he's like, fine, I'll stay in front of my guy for at least 3 quarters now.
I mean, for what he does, for like the role that he has to have on offense, you can't expect him to be playing lockdown defense every single time. Like how many players?
You can't expect anybody who plays for D'Antoni to have lockdown defense either, though.
I guess did you want to give the Yankees any love?
They split today in their doubleheader against Philly. They won the second, lost the first. Swept Boston, shocker. I actually, I'm not shocked with what New York's doing. This is my expectation, just because, in my opinion, I know people love talking about the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I don't think, are better than the Yankees because I think our relief pitching's there. I am still annoyed that J.A. Happ is wearing a Yankees uniform, but it is what it is. I mean,
this kind of surprised me. This is technically their best record they ever started with. There's like 8-1.
New York's known for being a slow starting team.
Yeah, you would think in the history that they would have gone 10-0 one time or something like that.
At some point, definitely, with the groups they had. And I do think having no fans is going to help some of these guys in New York, because it's, especially when you look at teams like New York and in Boston, the difference between LA and those two cities is like, in LA you can play bad and no one's going to really boo you, you know what I mean? But you play in Boston, you play in New York City, and you go like Giancarlo Stanton plays 4 games into the season, he's getting booed out, just getting destroyed, and he mentally can't handle that.
It's the guy that came to my mind when you first said that thing about like, how it's not like Stanton really seems like he cares what people think, especially fans and everything like that.
Well, it's different hearing fans than when you were in Miami. Like now you actually hear your fans, so it's like, wow, man, like this is what fans sound like.
Now it's like he's back in Miami again.
Yeah, it's like now he's like, it feels normal to him. So I'm hoping he can get it picked up a little bit. I like what we have going on so far. I think it kind of sucks we don't have the trade deadline. We're not gonna really make any moves trade wise. I don't feel like it's gonna be one of those seasons this year, just because with everything going, like players aren't gonna move across country with COVID and everything going on. You know what I mean? There's not necessarily a bubble system. Like I think baseball really screwed it up. They should have, and I really kind of kill baseball for this, because there's no reason for baseball not to really be in. Like I think there should be, if you play spring ball in Arizona, that's your league there. If you play spring ball in Florida, that's your league. The winner of that league faces the winner of the other league for the championship. And it at least would have been more controlled versus teams going all over the place. You know what I mean? It's like everyone has facilities and spring training facilities. Everyone has, living amenities over there. I thought baseball of all teams, of all sports, would have been like, okay, this will work best for us, but it's baseball, so shocker, they screwed it up.
So you think that it's going to have an effect on like teams trading or not trading this whole thing?
I think, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, think about it. How many teams are really going on, so let's say you play for Milwaukee, where, like, COVID's not a talk. And then you get traded to somewhere like, the Mets. It's like immediately you're like, oh, God. Like, now there's a health issue. Because especially if you have kids. And then you got to, in New York, you play for the Mets. And if you move your family into Jersey or something, it's like, okay, well, COVID's still huge there. If you play for, let's say, I don't know, what's another middle of nowhere area? You play for some team that's just not, Seattle. You're playing Seattle. Kansas City. You're playing for the Royals, middle of nowhere, Kansas City, and then you send the guys out to the Angels. Well, now you're in LA. It's like I think there's gonna be an issue trading in that sense, where like it's not gonna be, because baseball is really aggressive at the trade deadline. It's one of those sports where guys go all in. Typically, I don't think you're gonna see that as much this year, because the fact that moving from city to city, especially contenders, a lot of these contenders are in kind of bigger areas. Houston, that's a big city. You look at New York, the Yankees, you look at the Dodgers, you look at those teams there. It's like they're not necessarily in nowhere areas. DC, the Nationals, it's like you have a lot of these teams that the really good teams are kind of in big cities. So it's like I'm sure that there'll be some trades still to happen, but I don't think it's going to be as nearly as aggressive as I was hoping. Like I was hoping to see New York maybe make a move for, get rid of, because they have a lot of young talent that they're eventually going to have to lose, whether it's through supplemental drafts or whether they lose just because of contract. So if you can get something while you can, especially when you have J.A. Happ still throwing a freaking mound, and like somehow find a way to get him out. But we'll see what happens.
I think I was watching the game. Did J.A. Happ pitch against the Red Sox?
We had Cole throw, and we had what's-his-face throw, too.
I was watching somebody. It was either for the Yankees or Red Sox, and it literally
Cole and Paxton, I think, threw.
Okay, it might have been. Oh, it was Paxton because he's the one that gives up all the home runs in the first inning, right?
Wow, man.
Yeah.
First inning, like if you're gonna tee off, they get their groove in.
Hang on, your Zoom thing or something just did like an auto tune. You sound like T-Pain or something. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Oh, bro, it's beautiful. I say, how like some guys have a really good first quarter, and they have a really bad first quarter, and they ease into the game. It's like Paxton. For some reason, Paxton can just get rocked in the first inning, and then after that, he's he can survive to the sixth inning.
Yeah, I saw him bounce one off the grass, and I was like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I know it's the Orioles, and they're like the worst team in the league, but the Marlins having to come back on a bus and play with like half their players out, and they won again tonight. They won 1-0. And then yesterday they won 4-0. I don't know if that speaks to just how bad the Orioles are.
Well, they probably had more virtual fans than they would actual fans at that game.
I think they played at Baltimore, but I think either way, I think your point is correct.
Baltimore does have a good fan base. I
was going to say, as bad as they are, they actually do have a good fan base.
I mean, they have a rich history of baseball out there.
But yeah, looking at the lineup, it's just not a ton. But yeah, I think it's still too early to tell. But the Tigers started off doing pretty well, and then next thing you know, we're like 5-3 or something like that. You play a doubleheader, you lose 2 games in a row, and then that's like that. Now out of 60 games, if you lose 2 games in a doubleheader, it puts you back. Yeah,
man, it's so rough right now. I mean, I will say the one thing in baseball people were all talking about and loving was the Joe Kelly. And my thing with Joe Kelly.
Oh, we didn't talk about that at all?
No, and I'm gonna come right because Joe Kelly's kind of he likes to like pretend he's a tough guy, but it's like you don't throw at someone on a 3-0 pitch for all non-baseball people in the world.
I thought that made it better, to be honest with you.
No, it's so Bush League, but it's not. It's Joe Kelly, so it's not a shocker. It's Bush League, right. But it's like. This guy, if it's 3-0 and you throw at someone, it's like stretch. Remember, Dempster. There you go, Ryan Dempster, where he couldn't hit A-Rod or he couldn't strike out A-Rod, so he decided to throw at him and got him to 3-0. It's like, no, it's Bush League. It's like, you don't – and then he wants to, like, play this wannabe tough guy. It's like, why don't you throw a first pitch?
I get that it's Bush League to do it on a 3-0 pitch. To me, it was just kind of funny because it was probably going to be a walk anyway, so he just decided to hit him. Well, yeah, but it's also Bush League to steal signs and do everything that the Astros did. So I mean, it's kind of a wash.
And I was talking to my buddies about this. I'm like, do not be shocked when you find out 20 teams in Major League Baseball are doing the same thing they're doing, because it's happening. Everyone in baseball is doing it. It's just the Astros got caught. Like, I don't think it's a shocker one bit if I was to find out if like 8 teams came out and they said, oh, we have this report. Like, this isn't a thing that's just unheard of and not being done. I mean, people have always like, why do you think Apple Watches were banned 3 years ago?
Yeah, that was because of the Red Sox, right?
Yeah, and why do you think they get yelled at for banging on the like they were? I remember people got yelled at for banging bats in Detroit, not in Detroit, in St. Louis. They're banging bats against Chicago. It's like
I think that either. When you get into like if you're talking like banging bats, and even the trash can was pretty bad, but once you start getting into like using technology and stuff like that. One of the things that I saw that pitchers and catchers are doing this year that kind of made sense, that I'm surprised they never did it before, is they have like the sequences, but they have like 4 different sequences in their hat. And I guess they hadn't been doing that before, but if you have a guy on second, like that's one thing. If the guy's on second, you expect him to try to steal a sign and give it to the hitter. But why wouldn't they have been doing that already and be able to change it?
I mean, pitchers and catchers, I mean, especially catchers, a lot of catchers getting lazier and lazier. I mean, you look at Gary Sanchez, a guy who was known for how great his fielding was, how great defensively he was. These guys don't change up their sequences. Hell, sometimes they're looking to the dugout for a pitching sequence. Like, you're a major league pitcher, dude.
Right.
Call your own game. Be a man be a grown man about this now. Like, there comes a time to step up in your career. Sorry that calling a game is your step up moment. Jesus Christ. Like, I mean, I hate Houston, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, like, oh, Houston's the only group doing this stuff. I mean, they're not. New York's probably doing it too. It's not a shock. Teams that do this stuff, yeah, they're cheating, this and that. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, let's be very honest. If you think that just because a pitch is coming, you're going to hit it, that's not the case. It's not. I don't like the Astros, and let's be very foremost about this. I don't like them at all. But again, they do have very good players on their team. Yeah, they're struggling right now. It's the beginning of the season. Like, I'm not going to.
That's kind of the narrative is everyone's making fun of Bregman and short guy. What's his name?
Altuve.
They're making fun of their batting average and everything. I'm like, it's like 10 games into the season. I mean, I get it that it's funny to make fun of him and everything, but it could easily go the other way too.
I just didn't like that. And I understand that people are like calling Joe Kelly a hero and this and that, and they're loving it. But it's like, dude, you threw.
I haven't heard a hero, but I know what you're saying.
People are like, I mean, it's like he threw at someone at 3-0. It's like, if you play baseball, that happens. Like, quite frankly, like, thankfully for him, he didn't get a C in at bat because there's universal DH. Like, that was one thing I used to love about National League pitchers that threw at guys, because, like, okay, just make sure you go beam him next. Because I'm always against pitchers throwing at guys intentionally, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of dumb. I mean,
because when Manny Machado got yelled at for letting go of his bat, it's like, dude, he's not throwing a bat as hard as this guy's throwing a baseball. This guy's throwing a baseball 96 miles an hour. This can kill somebody. Like,
and then, so they don't do anything to stop that, and then they want to stop them from fighting at the mound. It's like, what do you think's more dangerous? Somebody throwing a punch or somebody throwing a baseball at you? Like,
I will say I don't like baseball overly protecting what Houston did, because that looks bad even on them. And again, baseball's just always so ass backwards on things too. And it's no shocker that they keep falling further and further behind in the NBA and NFL because of things like this. But it's like, how do you suspend a guy 8 games, but then you look at all these other guys when you have factual evidence, everything that's going on. It's like, oh, we'll take 2 first-round picks. Like, dude, it's baseball. It's 40 rounds in the draft.
You know what I found out is maybe I'm just ignorant for not knowing this. The baseball draft is not like a set number of rounds. It's just when everyone decides to stop.
Yeah, like it goes on and on and on. And it's like, when you look at some of this stuff, it's like, okay. And then on top of that, a lot of these players that they get aren't always drafted either. There's a lot of international free agent signings. Yeah,
David Sampson was like a president of the Marlins, and he went on the Levitard show, and he was talking about it one day about how, like, they'll draft like friends, family members or something. And it's like, just to say they got drafted, and like, well, aren't you wasting your pick? He's like, the baseball draft doesn't have a set number of rounds. It's just when everyone decides they're done drafting.
It's like Ken Griffey Jr.'s son got drafted by the Mariners. The man stopped playing high school baseball like his senior year. Like, Trey Griffey hasn't been playing baseball for a long time, and he still got drafted. Jeff Driscoll, I mean, his draft rights are still owned by the Red Sox right now. He plays quarterback, I think, for the Broncos now? I think it's the Broncos now.
Driscoll, yeah. Did you see Mahomes bought part of the Kansas City Royals?
Well, I mean, it's the Royals, so I'm sure it didn't sell for that much.
I just thought it was cool. Like, this guy's like 24, 25, and he owns like part of a sports team.
He's got $500 million, so why not throw some money around a little bit? He just bought an F12 Ferrari, and now he's going to go buy a baseball team. It helps him out with staying in the city, because Kansas City is a city like that where they like being, it's Midwestern, where everything's really homey and just weird. So it's
he's not going anywhere now with that contract.
I know, dude.
One of the other little things, did you see that the Pistons offered J. Cole a tryout?
Yeah, that's kind of like when people are talking about, oh, J. Cole has a shot. I'm like, no, he doesn't.
No, I was like,
J. Cole has 0 shot.
As much as I love him, and I know he played basketball in high school and college, like, you're like 33. You can't just not play basketball for 10 years and then stay in the NBA.
Did he play at one of those college? Like, did he even play college? Because I'm pretty
I think he walked on at St. John's.
Oh man, what a school to like keep going. Like, you're a walk on at St. John that probably registered 12 minutes.
I think that's what it was. But
he's got freestyles longer than college minutes. Put it that way.
I know. I don't know. If they want to sell jerseys, then just let them on the team.
I would. I mean, it'd be a cool thing to have a J. Cole jersey, like, but let's like if you had a J. Cole jersey, you know, I guess it could be cool. I don't know. I just hate when when people are talking about, oh, Quavo could play in the NFL. I'm like, no, he couldn't. He's 5'9". And
wait, who said that?
Oh, remember his little throwing film that he had last year? Stretch, I don't know if you remember this, but like he threw the ball, I guess, like 50 yards, and it's like, oh man, he could have been an NFL quarterback. I'm like, he's 5'9", $160. What NFL is he playing in?
Maybe he could be in the XFL. Oh, the XFL's coming back. I forgot about that.
I know, man. Here we go. And the XFL's back because the Rock decided the whole league was $15 million. Odell makes more than that a year. Tony Romo makes more than that a year talking about football.
Yeah, I would say the price was at rock bottom.
And it just, and I understand people like football, but it's like, there's a point where it's like, okay, why? Like, I've never been an XFL guy. I was also not an AAF guy. When people said, hey, you're going to the Orlando AAF game, like, no, why? Why? Like, you could give me free sideline tickets and I can meet every single player and their family. And I would rather work an open close at whatever bar you point me to.
Yeah, if it was like the Battlehawks or something, I would check it out. But,
what?
The Battlehawks, the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Who was the team that Hackenberg played for?
I don't know. I know Stretch is a roughneck.
Yeah, he is. But his boy Walker's gone, isn't he? PJ's over in Carolina.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's with Carolina.
All right. Well, something good came out of the XFL then, at least.
Yeah, and I know people like, what's his face, Teddy, but I'd like to see PJ put a little run at Teddy because I'm not the biggest, I don't think Teddy's as great as people put him out to be, but I'd like to see PJ put a run at him.
Yeah, he'll let it loose. I want to give a shout out too for Orlando City Soccer. We play tomorrow night. It's the MLS's back tournament. We play tomorrow night against Minnesota. And then if we win that, we play on the weekend against Portland, which would probably be, if they won this tournament, like the biggest thing that they've won, I think, since the team has been around.
In Portland or in Orlando?
I think
I'm going to sound stupid on this, but are they playing in each city or do they have a bubble as well? I don't follow MLS whatsoever.
Everybody's playing in Orlando. They're playing it like by the Wide World of Sports, I think, or something.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
If you watch the games, they have to play at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and they're still like drenched in sweat. It's insane. Because it's so humid. They have games that start at like 7 or 8, and then at like 9 or 10. But we beat LAFC last week. I think it was like Friday or Saturday. We beat LAFC, who was like the best team. That was projected to win the whole thing. So I just thought that would be cool. And then if we win that, we'll be promoted to another league. And that league, as you know, is the Bundesliga.
Oh, sweet. There we go.